exciting. Sorry, class. It's very exciting. So, thank you. We are going to look at an example essay, and I'm going to show you a little bit. I'm going to give you some tips, and we're going to go from there. See if there's any questions on how that works. Okay? So I put in Canvas a new oops, that's not right. Page that's tips for peer review or helpful peer review, and it's right below the peer review section. So, or edit and proofread on your narrative essay, narrative module. So this has, I have 5 tips in here, and I'm going to go over these, and then we're going to look at the questions, and then use the example, use a paper as an example. The reason I want you to be good at peer reviewing is because it will help you as a writer to become a better writer by looking at other people's stuff critically with an eye that finds the details and thinks them all the way through. That's what we mean by critically, not just like no good, right? That's not what we mean by critically in this kind of area. And also because it'll help each other, help your the writer of the paper by finding, by having access to an outside pair of eyes to see what it looks like at this point, what your paper looks like, and where it can be improved. So the first tip is take your time. Don't expect this to be super fast. You'll get quicker as you go. But what works best is if you read through the essay pretty quickly. You don't have to pay too much attention at this first read, but just to get an idea of what's happening. Read through the essay to understand the storyline, understand the purpose. And then look at the questions if you have any to be answered in your peer review. And then go back and answer those questions. Read it again for the purpose. This is really exactly the same thing you're supposed to do when you read anything critically. I'm sure you've heard that before in how to look at this article for content and answering questions on, SATs or whatever you've gotten there, or any other test. Read the questions, then read it again. You'll have till 11:59 tonight or tomorrow night to finish the 2 peer reviews that you have to do for this first narrative essay. Each of those completed and well done reviews is 5 points on your final grade of your paper. Okay, so there's 50 points base points, and it's going to be 10 points out of there. So you do 2 reviews well, that's 10 points out of your base. If you miss those, then your grade's dropping pretty quickly, right? So make sure you get that done. As we go through the quarter, we'll do them in class, and we'll have to the end of the class, and you'll still be able to get them done just fine. And you'll have a chance to back and forth discuss the papers as well with readers. But we're going to start out so you have more time to get that done. Number 2 is pretty important. We want to be specific and be thorough. We want to answer questions with specific details, like we did looking at the elephant essay. I said, well, where does it say this word? Where are these words from? What sentence specifically? Which transition specifically? Not like we need more transitions. It's really jumpy. Where? Exactly where and how can you make it better? And he says, between paragraphs 2 and 3, it's a big jumping topic. Can you relate the 2 somehow? Is there a way to stretch the sentence, to bridge it from half the sentence being one topic, half the next? Can you do contrast? What can you do to make it make more sense? Does this make sense? Be specific. Be thorough means go all the way from the beginning to the end. Don't just say, yeah, it looks good. That's not helpful. It's not helpful to the other person. You might think, well, I get checked that off, meaning it's good, but we want to work to improve it. I don't expect anyone's organization or anyone's expression, ideas, or anything to be up to par at the first draft. So if I get to number
Is that recording?
Really?
It's been recorded. So for number 3 is be helpful. That's the point of this whole thing, is that we can improve on the point is so we can improve the essay, not just keep it where it is and get it done as fast as we can. That's not the point. The point of the class is to improve our writing. So that is the same. We break it down to each assignment. Note while you're reading it where you got lost as a reader, where you're wondering, wait, where are we? What are we doing? What's going on? Who is this person talking to? What type of example is going on? So if you note those kind of examples and those locations in the paper, you'll be able to help your reader because you're coming from the outside. When you're still on the inside, the writer knows what they're talking about. You know what you're trying to say, but then we can see from the outside and think, oh, okay, so I jumped too far, I didn't explain what's really happening, that kind of stuff. Also, if you show where you're most interested and where things went really well, the writer can emulate what's going on or perhaps focus in more on that purpose or that point in the story, that support if it's not a narrative essay. Maybe that's where the real juice of the story is, and that, or the essay, and that's what they want to develop more, as opposed to just check it off as in, yep, that part's good, but take those techniques and maybe focus in on that part as well. Number 4 says, focus on the ideas, the organization, and the support, okay? That means if you're focusing on what they're writing about and how well they're doing it in the support, is it explained well enough, are there enough details, and the organization, is the timeline nice and tight, is it clear what's happening throughout the story, where are we in time and in place, then it's going to be more helpful. It's really easy to just say, I think you need a comma here, or circle it. I think that you need a bit more work here. But that's not going to help the writer as much as if you really pay attention to what you're talking about and for what purpose, topic, idea. You know, you need more evidence in this area. I'm really not sure you've proven your point yet. That's what you really want to focus on. And I give you questions to answer, so I really do point you on that way. The trick is to not just say, yeah, looks good, check, next. It's not helpful. And last, number 5, be respectful of each other. Be kind yet helpful. Okay? Critical commentary it's constructive criticism. It's not just criticism, as in, this is really not any good, or obviously you need to work more on your comma splices, right? We want to be helpful and respectful. Give what you want to get back. 1, that goes back up to being specific and thorough. You want a good review, so give a good review. And 2, treat the writer like you want to be treated as the words you use. It's not just like, this was really boring. Especially if this is an online review, and the first ones, your narratives, will be more or less online. You will see each other in class, but we don't know each other super well yet. So maybe we might be tempted to not be super respectful or just as kind, friendly within there. But don't say things you wouldn't say to a person's face. Okay? You guys know that. Just don't fall back into easy criticism, okay? Any questions on this, what that looks like, why we do it? Okay. I'm going to put on the screen an example essay that I looked at. I got this from a different class, and my scissors are disappeared from my classroom, so I tore off the name, so that's why that looks terrible. But this is a student example from a one-on-one class. And I'm going to do a quick review of this. Now I've read it and I've reviewed it already. I think there's a few marks in there. But what I want to do is show you kind of, and we're not going to do the whole thing. We're going to do a little bit of the process. And if anyone else has any a draft of yours, we can do a little bit of that. I don't mind reviewing yours in class if you are willing to. Some little bonus stuff. So I've already done the first step, which is read it. Okay? So we're gonna skip over. We're gonna skip to in your narrative peer review, and I'll kind of explain how this works. Here's your questions. Okay, here's your instructions. You're going to submit your rough draft. This is you guys. You're going to submit your rough draft to this discussion. Right through here, you're going to copy and paste it all into the reply, just like Josh did. Okay? And then you will select 2 essays to read and analyze. So we'll probably do that in class, and what you'll do is just claim them by replying to, say, Josh's. And you go in here and you can just say, well, look at this, you guys already met. So you reply, say, reviewed by, okay? Or you can only choose an essay that has 1 reply or 1 claim reply. That way everyone gets 2, not about 1 person just because he did it early gets 7 and other people get 0. That's how I worked that out. But you'll reply to it, and then in that reply you can go back and edit it if it's just a claim replied by or reviewed by. Let's see. And then you'll answer these questions. You can copy and paste this section into your reply. You go back and edit or do another one. And then add information, or just write it out in sentence form. You do need to write things out. Details, specific details. So don't expect you to say just, yes, this is a nice timeline. So our questions. A lot of these will be the same per essay, but not all of them. They are focused in on the type of essay you're writing. So the first one, are the descriptions interesting and meet at least most of the 5 sentences? Where could more be used? So the second part of that is there to guide you to say, this is where we could use more description. This is where I wanted more details because I was interested, but I was left with wanting. And you'll tell where, not just like, yeah, you could use more details. That's not very helpful. Does the story prove the thesis by talking about the controlling idea or just the stuff that leads up to it? So make sure that you are writing what your thesis says. Remember we talked about this in class? Like the person who says becoming a mom really changed my life, and then we get a story of the birth. I don't see any of the change of life, right? I don't see how you became a more responsible person. I just see the becoming a mom. So the thesis doesn't match. Yes, it matches, or no, I think really we're telling about this. Maybe they should change this part. Okay? Could the writer of this paper have omitted any passages? Is there extra stuff? Make it more concise or focus on proving the thesis. So this is making sure all the support is unified. There's nothing extra, no tangents. Remember we talked about stories that wander around. We don't want to do that. That's your chance to check that. Okay. Are there any, that's also, are there any holes? Consider the timeline. Does it transition? Is it logical? Does it flow? Where can more transitions be needed? Transitions happen within paragraphs as well. From one point to the next. That's all the transition is it's traveling through time, space, and ideas. And you're just going to take your reader there as opposed to let them try to blindly swim from one to the next. Are the characters authentic? Let's see. We talked about this. Can you truly see the characters? Do they sound real? Do you have yourself as a 6-year-old speaking like Shakespeare? Unless that's the point of the story, you should sound like a 6-year-old if you're being a 6-year-old, if remembering yourself as a 6-year-old. Okay? So make sure you're portraying things. If it's dialogue, it sounds like dialogue, not just more direction. Okay? You can think about the characters in the If Only story to get a good concept of that. Those are believable characters. They're vivid. They're understandable. Consider the use of dialogue. Is there any? Could you use some more dialogue? Is there any stuff that doesn't move things along? You want to use dialogue where it moves plot along and it shows character development. In the If Only, we saw it where she's like, I need food, any food, right? We understood the main point of the essay, and we saw his reactions, we understood the characters as well. You can move a plot along really well by using a little bit of dialogue, as opposed to just saying, yeah, she asked for some cans, I said she couldn't, blah, blah, blah. We got to know the characters better. Number 7, could the writer of this pick, whoa, we got a bonus one. Number 3 and 7 are the same, aren't they? At which point do you feel most interested in this piece? When least interested. Like I said, this is going to help your reader, your writer, understand where it can be enhanced, what you can emulate within. This part was really good, but why was this part better than this part? Okay? How can I bring it up to that same level? And then rate this paper's overall readability. How well could you read it? Was it interesting? Did you want to keep reading? You know, tell me. Maybe it's out of 1 through 10. Just give me a little bit of content there. Are there any questions on what I'm expecting out of this?
So you want everything to be done by tomorrow?
We're going to work in class tomorrow, and part of class is I'm going to go around and talk to each of you about where you are on your own paper. In class, you'll be doing the reviews, but you have till midnight that night to finish them, okay? So you have a lot of extra time. It's not just trying to get 2 done within class. But I want highly developed, helpful reviews, each one's worth 5 points, you'll do 2. And that'll be 10 points out of your base 50, out of the 100 points of your essay. Okay? If there's no questions on what the questions are asking, let's apply that to an essay. I'm going to put the doc back up, the example essay, and I'll look at the questions here. So first of all, I read through this and I'm thinking, okay, some descriptions. On this, we start out by saying, I entered a contest to win a car. All I had to do was ride on a roller coaster for a month. How hard could it be? As it turns out, very. So I selected this essay because it's a totally unique topic, right? This person's going to ride a roller coaster for a month to get a car. Okay, I've never read an essay like this. Kind of cool. During this time period, I discovered both my physical and mental limitations. I put my body and mind to the test and came out a different person. This is a story about how an all-in trip is sometimes exactly what you need to make those tough changes in life. So far I don't have any real descriptions, but let's get to the main story and see what we can find. Let's start from the beginning. I was miserable. I was a young, adventurous 21-year-old working a dreadful job answering phones at a collection agency. Okay, so we got this word right here. I think that's kind of gonna do it. I don't need to see her doing this. I can pretty much imagine, right? And that's not the point of the story. The point of this right here is to tell me, here we are, typical mornings, I'm getting yelled at by irate people who have failed to pay their parking violations. There's my example, right? I know what her situation is, but we're not to the roller coaster yet.
How do you know it's a girl?
Because I know who wrote it.
Oh.
I took her name. I took the name off, right? But yeah, you don't so far, huh?
Yeah.
So then we have our point, our plot change. Here's next transition. So you can notice this. You can mention nice transition, and I'll go through my little abbreviations that you can borrow. Nice T in a circle means transition. Then my ear catches the DJ on the radio playing background music in the background, and I hear the thing that will change my life. What is it? That's good use of colon. We are holding a contest called World Tell You Burl. So great title, nicely descriptive, and here she describes what the premise is, right? First place in a brand new car. I must admit I was intrigued by the car, but it also gave me an opportunity to escape. So the story has purpose, just like the elephant. Wasn't just to learn about how he shot the elephant, it was to show how he hated imperialism, show how he didn't really have the power. The story shows how she finally figured out how to make a change. And it took a drastic, crazy contest, right? Entitled World Tell You Burl. I mean, right there, you get a good idea, right? to let go of its current binds that are holding me to the misery and start with something new. 3 days later, what's that called? What's these words?
Timeline.
Transition, okay? And here she could probably add a little bit more detail. 3 long days or 3, busy days, as I spent 3 days running around trying to gather up my life and quit my job. You can add that emotion and tell me a little bit more, but at least we know what's going on. I quit my day and embarked on this extraordinary journey. It all seems too simple. 30 days into a new car, which I desperately needed. Quitting my job must have seemed crazy, but it wasn't a job for me. Now I was preparing for life on a roller coaster for 30 days. It was mid-spring, so now we have a little bit of weather instantly added to it. So the weather was brisk, especially in Idaho where the contest was taking place. Okay, so knowing that we kind of have a little bit of connection, we can get some ideas, but you could probably use a little bit more detail on what do you mean by brisk? Is it rainy still? Has it been a dry one? Give me a little bit. And then we have our extra $10,000. All I do is ride a roller coaster for 30 days. Okay, game day, so to speak. 16 of us loaded into a 2-passenger van headed to Silverwood. Excitement was thick in the air. The rules further explained on the drive. We are to eat and sleep in our assigned cars. We will be allowed 15-minute breaks every 3 hours. And of course, we had to keep our hands and feet in the cart at all times, even while sleeping. So, there's the rules. That's useful. We understand what the situation is. The coaster ran only on business days, but they applied 24 hours a day. Burger King provided the meals 30 miles away. So right there, this tells us a little bit about what's going on, right? Knowing that Burger King's not right around the corner, you're getting Burger King cold burgers or like capped at least, right? They're not fresh fast food even. So you can add descriptions. You don't have to tell me about the soggy burger. We can imply that through that 30 miles, right? It instantly makes you kind of go, eh. So when she goes on to explain Burger King and lunch, these were bigger struggles than you can imagine. Can you imagine it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day? And the breaks, here we go. Clock running, if everyone was asleep, they would reset in 3 hours. Problem was you had to get up. When you had to wake up in the morning, potty break is pretty vital. If you missed your break, you had to wait 3 more hours, and let me tell you, the struggle was real. So here, she's hinting at the struggle without going into great details. That's probably a decent choice. The point is more about the whole contest, not about how hard it is to miss potty breaks, right? So we are implying, again, the description. Contestants dropped like flies. A little bit of a cliche, but it shows us how fast things are going. And here, we get a bit more until by day 7, there are 4 of us left. While I'm here, if it's one word, write it out in letters. So we have never been on a roller coaster, one ate a bunch of candy, and one wanted to go to a party. They dropped out for loads of reasons. I didn't really care. I was just glad I was still there. I'd already felt like I had won. Even if I didn't get a brand new car, I'd have something nice and have cash left over. The next week went by with no casualties. Not that Mother Nature didn't try to kill us. Okay, so now there's hints of something else going to happen. I mentioned earlier it was mid-spring and it was a rainy spring. So she could have brought this in earlier. Rain might not sound bad to you, but it felt like needles driving into your skin. We tried our best to keep our skin covered. We all had our eyes on the prize. Okay. And then we have then the day 14 happened. Dreams were crushed. What do you guys think could be added to this so far?
Maybe detail about the people that are
Okay.
competing with it.
Okay, so yeah, the characters, we don't really have any characters except for her a little bit. What else is missing? Does anyone see her on the roller coaster? What would be interesting to see?
a description of the actual roller coaster, like what it specifically put her through and
Okay.
perhaps how she felt? Like, did she have to deal with nausea
Mhm.
or loss of appetite, or just the starting with the nature, what's called nature, was a good start, but how else was the ride affecting her body?
Yeah. Yeah. See her in the car riding it, that would be great. What else? When you're reading this and hearing it read to you, what do you think? I'd like more information on that.
You can describe, or what roller coaster it is.
Okay.
We know it's one in Silverwood.
So even using the name would help for
Yeah.
those who've been there? Yeah, 3 different ones, so there's a good chance, okay. What else? What else would you like to see? Do you see, what do you see on the other side? What can you visualize?
I just wanted to know more about other things than just for like if there was news people there, or like why they were even having the contest, like if there's a new roller coaster or something.
Okay, so what the point was, yeah, is they're breaking in a new roller coaster. Who else is around? What other characters are there? Talks about her like covering her skin to protect from the rain. What was she wearing? You know, and by this time are you just seeing garbage bags? Do you just not care anymore? Right? Yeah, she hasn't said she's a girl. Does that make a difference to anyone as a reader? Do you think it would help?
Maybe a little bit.
Might help picture it. Yeah, 30 days, I guess they're at day 14, 15-minute break. I'm assuming the showers are pretty limited. So you got some physical descriptions you can add in there. She's got long hair, it's all matted, or it hasn't been out of a ponytail for 5 days. Things like that are going to show how she's getting really weary of this. I want to see how they sleep in there. Right?
Shower.
No, like
No,
just
it's
business
Shut
hours.
down business hours, but yeah, I mean, we don't see her riding it. We don't see how good it feels when it finally stops,
No.
right? So I think we could get some emotional, what it feels like, how it's affecting her body when finally after 8 hours of riding, my body still feels like it's moving, but at the same time I'm glad it's not. Something in there to show the difference.
What it was like walking after you finally
Yeah,
got
that
off.
first step out, you're pretty wobbly. By the time you get back in, you're really not looking forward to it. So we could have a lot more description of what it's actually like, because I've never ridden a roller coaster for more than a bit of time, right? Like a ride at a time, then you go back and you can wait for the line again. But I've never ridden it for 3 hours straight. Anyone else? No, so they're missing a really great opportunity to expose us as readers to something new, let alone 14 days of this. So, like I said, it's a really interesting topic, but I think we could have a lot more here. So now I get to the day 14, dreams are crushed. What happens? The day 14 should be written out, and the rules of the games changed. We woke up on day 14 to one of the big wigs from the radio station standing, talking to our chaperone. The weather was dreadful. It was gray, gloomy, and the rain to beat the band. This is called a cliche, and I'd rather see exactly what it was like. My hair was already drenched for the day. However, than just a catchphrase. Soon our spirits would match the weather. That's nice. The powers to be announced that we were going to have a few rules change as allowed in the very fine print. No one reads. 1 prize this year. 1 prize, no runner-up prize. 4 of us remain. If the 4 of us remain for full 30 days, our names would be placed in a hat and a winner would be chosen. Okay, so that's the situation again. I looked at my fellow contestants and said, "You're welcome. I'm about to increase your odds." The weather now matched the mood. I did everything that had been asked of me, and I felt like I should have been given what I had signed up for. Yet halfway through, someone changes the rules. So what happens? Tell me what you see here and where information could be added. Alexia?
Well,
you could describe who the bigwig was, like perhaps his appearance or what you first thought when you saw him coming up, this strange guy talking into a microphone.
Okay. And we want to make sure that your details focus on what was important. Perhaps he's still dry and clean, right? So something to show the difference. And yeah, some guy in a nice dark coat is coming up and telling me what's going on, and I've been doing all he's asked for 14 days to show that distinction. What else? What happens, guys?
She gives up.
She gives that. Where do you know that?
The weather now matched her mood. I'm
When
gonna
she tells
increase
them
your
her
odds.
dialogue. Did everyone catch that? I want to know what they did. Were they too wary to care? Did anyone else leave? How did she do it? Did she turn to them? And then how did she leave? Did she grab her stuff, pack up, or just walk off? I want to know exactly. I want a bit stronger of an ending. It's great, you know? It's a
I
great
threw my
phrase.
Whopper at
Her,
the
her dialogue is really authentic, but I could see just even a statement of, and I walked off. And I headed to my dry but broken down but dry car, right? Something to show her actual leaving. What were you gonna say? No? Okay. So we understand what she's feeling and why she's feeling it. Halfway through, someone changed the rules. I stopped there because the last paragraph is outside of the story. It's that description of what happens, and it kind of goes back to her point of feeling trapped in her job and miserable. I didn't win the car, but I didn't come out empty-handed either. Okay, so even after all that misery, she's saying she can find something good. Great. I learned that I wasn't afraid to leave everything and start something new, which is a tool that eventually have another kid. I also learned that I'm tough and I will persevere under some of the most horrible conditions. But most importantly, I learned to just do me. What do you think? Are those good things? Is it a good ending? What do you think?
Well, I don't really understand why she's saying like she'll persevere even under the most horrible conditions because she quit like
Okay.
not halfway through.
And we didn't see her in the car really suffering. If we had seen those 14 days, we could have believed that easier. Even if she did quit, she did stick through 14 days, but we didn't see the toughness of it. So at least if we had some of her sharing some of her discomfort before, we'd understand that. And yeah, that is a good accomplishment. She did, you know, she learned she could start over. That's good. I think that the last one might be a typo. What do you guys think? We
Which
didn't
one?
have the last sentence. Just do me.
No, that's what she
Are
meant
we
to
gonna
say.
do that? Not just be me? Does that fit in?
I wouldn't
with
put
the
that, but
story?
she-
Maybe. It kind of goes along with the whole I can quit and take chances as I want. Okay. So we talked a lot about descriptions, and we're not going to go through all of the rest of the questions, but while we talked about descriptions, we talked a lot about the rest of the stuff. Organization, we mentioned, characters. What else is on there? Does it prove its thesis? Would you say that the thesis is need to make tough changes? What do you think? Maybe it's at the end. What do you guys think? What was the purpose of the story?
Get the car.
Talks about,
Show how she learned the lesson.
yeah, the lessons. Okay. I think that this hints at it. Right? I gotta do something, I'm miserable in my job. Quitting my job must have seemed crazy, but it wasn't a job for me, perhaps. So we have an implied one that comes up to it and is concluded at the end. It's not be afraid to start something. Do you think she proved that she wasn't afraid to try something drastic to make a new start? I think she was starting to get there. The toughness, the real struggle wasn't quite described well enough. Yeah, I mean, she showed us that she could quit a job and try to live for a month on a roller coaster for new chances, but we didn't quite describe it well enough to show the purpose yet, to show that point. Getting there though. Any passages could get rid of. If there's anything extra, it could be a little detail. What do you think? I think most of the passages, the big chunks are good. Here at the end, there might be a little too much about the weather. We could probably condense that down. Just give us a good description about how it's affecting her and then move on. Or how it's affecting her, how she's huddled down and then sees this dry guy. Seeing the contrast will show us more. And then we can get back to, now I was as great as the weather was, my moods were the same. So I think that could get a little condensed. Any other places you guys think of? If this one's not obvious, like all of a sudden she talks about her family at home or whatever, then sometimes it can be a little tough. But you also want to think of where you can pare down. Concise is your ideal writing for this comic. What's next? Storyline. Does it flow? Is it logical in its organization? Start to beginning. Some good transitions that are clear. We know when we're going from, the office job to the roller coaster to Silverwood. It talks about loading into the van and traveling. So that's great. Yeah, I think she could add a little bit more, like we said, 3 crazy days later or whatever.
She could have described her job a little bit more.
Do you think she needed to describe her job anymore?
Not really.
I just think that maybe there's a little more work into that job, more boring work. Because when you answer phones, it's boring, but it's not. It doesn't seem as bad as what she's.
Being yelled at by irate people who have failed to pay their parking violations, so it's their fault in the first place, and yet they're yelling at you. That's pretty miserable. But I think maybe if she had started, instead of telling about the situation, if she had started inside the job, that could be really useful. What do you think? Put her at her desk being yelled at by an irate customer or person who's in the wrong in the first place. And then we get a picture of what that feels like, and then go back out. Sometimes that's something you can do. You can add a little experience up right up at the top, and then go ahead and tell the situation. Or take some of this out because you get to it right here, right? Some of this comes in here, the entering the car. How hard could it be? You can put that right through here. Put a part more into the storyline. Anything else? What about the characters? Who do we know in this story?
The narrator.
The narrator. And we don't even know the gender, right? We can probably get a little bit more. We get to hear her thoughts a lot, though. And we get to know her style. How hard could it be? Right, let's start at the beginning. Things like that. It was in the bag. We get a little bit of casual interaction, casual dialogue that helps us understand her character. Some of it gets a little wordy. You can use this kind of stuff in your narratives, but we want to make sure that we keep it clean and not clean as in not cussing, but just less, okay? Always keep those down. We talked about the cliches like this. Let's start from the beginning. This is a story. Now this could be considered your announcement, but does it fit with this? With this type of essay, do you think? Anyone get really, that's kind of weird when they read it? Okay. So you can maybe redo that, But this kind of telling, because she's outside of it and bringing herself into it, it's okay. This is a story about how an all-in trip is sometimes exactly what you need. We don't know anything about the other contestants except for that description of those who drop out. And why? Real fast. One wanted to go to a party, one ate too much candy, one never been on a roller coaster. But could we enhance the story by learning more about them? What kind of people are they? Even not so much there, but at the end. I really want to know what they did when she said, "I'm out of here," right? I think that can help us. Who was she in front of them, behind them? How did they interact? Is everyone as miserable as her?
Or like how many days after she left did the winner actually like win?
Yeah.
Hmm.
In the end, it only took 3 more days, but I didn't need to be there, or
Yeah.
however. I don't know. Yeah, that's one of those questions that we don't have answered. And it's not about who won it, it's about what she learned, but still, I think you could work it perhaps in there. Some dialogue would help. Only bit we have is that little bit at the end and this DJ. Yeah.
Just because she's talking about how like you can put down what you had and then like start something new. I'm kind of curious what happened afterwards, like if she got a new job.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that would add to the story or not.
Well, as opposed to just kind of telling, what she does is she does a lot of telling. This is what I did, this is the rules, this is what we had to live through, but she doesn't show her living through, missing bathroom breaks. She doesn't show how she slept. And then at the end, she tells more, but she can continue to show by saying, how did she leave? She'd go back out to her rundown car and start filling out applications the next day. Did she get a better job than answering or making collection calls? Just a little hint of showing as opposed to just telling. And yeah, I didn't come out, I learned something. But, well, what really happened, right? We know you don't have a job at this point. That's a good point. And let's see. Where were you guys most interested?
Burger King.
Burger King? Anyone else? That was pretty interesting though. It's like, oh.
Come on.
It's like almost 30 minutes to get back.
Yeah, 30 miles away. And she kind of describes, imagine eating that breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so she's connecting to the reader. So why you're most interested in that, besides it's almost noon,
Yeah, I'm hungry.
is that she goes and she starts showing us. She gets a little bit more detailed in there. It's something we're all more or less familiar with, Burger King food, fast food in general. And so we can connect with her on her level of misery there. The bathroom one starts in there, but the Burger King is really specific, and breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you could maybe enhance it by saying something like, and then I had to, after the 12th time I opened my whatever, I really did feel like eating it, but I knew I had no option, so I just choked down another Whopper or whatever, right? A couple things I want to mention in here. I haven't looked at any of the grammar with you yet, but a couple things I do want to show. One, I didn't do any grammar until the end. And then this part. Keep with one tense. She switches to you around here somewhere. All you had to do was do that, right? Where's that?
Essentially, all
You had to do with win the prize.
right next to where you're.
Right here. Yeah. Essentially, all I